Hi, so I'm just going to dive right into this testimony that I have about God and what He did for me while I was sick. Um, as you can see from the title, um, God put me to sleep and He healed me. Um, so let me start from where I got sick. I remember just feeling like I was catching a cold, and I'm like, when I first caught it, I'm like, okay, it'll get better. I'm not gonna worry too much about it. It'll come and it'll go. So about a week passed, and the cold was still there, and I'm just like, still just waiting for it to go. And about another week passed, and the cold still didn't go away. So I just remember feeling really weak, and for some reason, my breaths seemed like they were like kind of shallow. Because when I would walk around the house or when I would come up the steps to my house, I would just be out of breath so much faster than I was ever out of breath. So I just, um, I was like, yeah, I don't know. I just started talking to God, and I didn't really think about going to the hospital for some reason. I just was talking to God. I know I needed Him. I needed to be strengthened. So every day during those 2 weeks, I would just keep talking to God, just keep praying. And I remember really not having an appetite during those 2 weeks, and not even really being able to sleep because I was so uncomfortable. Like, the being sick it just made me so uncomfortable. I just couldn't sleep, and I remember not really being able to lay down on my back while I was asleep. So I spent a lot of time during those 2 weeks just up and talking to God. And I remember the very last night, I told the Lord, I said, Father God, I'm not going to stop praying until you heal me. I said, tonight's the night that I'm not going to stop praying until you heal me. And I meant that with all my heart. I meant it with everything in me. I wasn't going to give up. I just was going to pray until something happened. So I'm praying. And I say about 10 seconds, 10, 15 seconds into the prayer, I fall asleep. But it didn't alarm me right then and there. I woke back up out my sleep, I want to say almost immediately, and kept praying because I just was so eager to, not eager, I was just so determined to be healed. So when I woke up, it felt like something came into my room, like I don't know how to explain it. It just was like a presence, but the presence was like making me so sleepy. Like it felt like sleeping potion or something. Sorry that sounds crazy, but that's what it felt like. Something that made me really sleepy just came into my room, and I say it came into my room because it came from one side of the room, and I could feel it just moving forward, and just making me real sleepy and making me just so tired. And I ended up falling asleep, which I haven't done really in those 2 weeks because, like I said, I was just really uncomfortable. So I fell asleep, and this is when it gets like weird. So I'm now I'm in a hospital, but it didn't feel like a dream. It did. I didn't feel like I was dreaming or nothing because everything was so vivid, and when I touched stuff, like I could just feel it. It just seemed like I was somewhere else. And I remember being in the hospital near a gift shop, and I had my children with me. And the weird thing about the gift shop was it was it wasn't like closed in. It was like you're walking down the hallway and then you start to see all this stuff on the walls. There was just so much stuff on the walls, like magazines, like flowers, like little teddy bears and stuff on the walls of this hospital. And I'm like, this is different. This is so weird. Like, they're not thinking about people taking this stuff. Like, that's my thought process. So anyway, I didn't think too much about it. I just was like, this is really different. And I just happened to look ahead of me, and there was a woman like halfway in and halfway out a door, and she was motioning me like this to come to her. And for some reason, I just felt like that's what I was supposed to be doing. It was okay to do, even though I didn't know her. She was like she was dressed like a doctor. She just had on a all white like doctor's jacket, like to her, like a little above her knee, and she had short, like shoulder length brown wavy hair. And she told me to leave my kids, but she didn't tell me from her mouth. It was like she told me, like she was speaking to me telepathically, and that wasn't odd to me. I just did it. I just did what she told me to do. So I went into the room. Oh, and let me add this. Me leaving my kids in that hospital. Let me tell you something about the environment of that hospital and why I did it. The environment of that hospital was so pleasant. Like, it was like a 10-star hospital. It was just like so pleasant. It was like everybody loved everybody. Everybody trusted everybody. Everybody was happy. It just was so, it was different. It was different. So for that reason, I just felt comfortable leaving my kids right there. And I just felt like they were going to be safe. So I went into the room with this lady, and I could tell by people's reactions when they seen her that they respected her, and they liked her very much. And so there was just something about her presence is just, I want to just say the love of God was in her. She was just so kind and so humble. She was actually like a very popular doctor to what it seemed like, being in a hospital and the way people were reacting to her. But there was, not only that, there was a news person who was coming to interview her. And she was like, I'm about to be interviewed. But for some reason, the lights were off in the room. It was just like me, her, and then a news reporter walks in. And so I remember just watching her in awe, just speak about herself. And I just was like in awe. It just was like something about her. And the news reporter was just so happy, like just had the microphone like yes, and just so excited, like everybody loved her. So she had, once her interview was over, the news reporter left. She told me it was my turn to be interviewed. And at that time, I just, in my real life, I just had got into an argument with somebody hours before I fell asleep, and they were calling me all kind of names. And I really didn't feel too good about myself. Like, my self-esteem, I didn't really feel too good about myself. So I just stood there listening to her, but she was just saying, people know about me, but now it's your turn. They need to hear you're special, you're somebody. And she just was filling me up with lots of love. And next thing you know, a news reporter came in to interview me. And I felt so loved. And I'm just like, me? I'm not nobody. me. Like, that's just how I was feeling. But the news reporter was as eager and as happy to see me as they were to see her too. Like, everybody was just so super friendly and like filled with happiness and joy in this hospital. So after that was over, this doctor lady told me to stand up, and I did, and she stood up across from me. Meanwhile, the lights are still off, but she begins to I don't want to say she touched me, but she stood there across from me, and this light came out of her chest, and it traveled right into my chest. And it was love. This light was filled with so much love. I've never felt nothing like this in my entire life. The love that came into me at that moment, I never felt. It's like if if that love touches this world, this fallen world, that the world will just explode. This love touched me, and it was like love times a trillion. It was beyond that. I can't even explain it. It just was pure love. And it was healing me. It healed me. And as this light is flowing out of her and flowing into me, I'm lighting up. My body just starts to light up. And I happen to look at my arms, and there's scriptures that are that they're blue scriptures with like light, with the light coming from behind it, and it's seeping in to my body, and the scriptures were healing me. And it was so intense. I never experienced nothing like that as long as I lived. I never experienced no love like that. So at that moment, I knew that she had a gift to impart love from God. From God. That was God's love that was imparted to me. And she was on assignment to impart that love into me. And it was amazing. And it was amazing. So this is the after. This is what happened after. So after she told me she had to go. And since I never felt a love like that ever in my life, I never felt a love like that, I didn't want her to go. And she said, well, I have to go. I have other things I have to do. Mommy. Hold on. So I said, well, can I at least help you get to where you need to go? I just didn't want her to leave, because there was just so much more that I wanted to know about her. So she said, well, yeah, you can come. So I walked with her, because I didn't necessarily know where I was going, to a stairwell. And then it was like an all-white stairwell. Everything was white. The walls are white. The steps was white. The banisters was white. Everything was all white. And she was going up the steps. So we got to a certain point where she said, you can't go with me. You can't go no farther than right here. I'm sorry. And she felt like, it looked like she felt really like brokenhearted to say that. Like, I'm sorry, you can't. Like, she hated to break that to me, but she had to, and I understood. So she left, and I started to leave the hospital, and I noticed that the hospital was different. The downstairs of the hospital was built like it looked like it was made for children Like it just looked like it was a toy hospital. Like it just was so different. I just never seen no architect like what I seen in this hospital. I just never seen anything like that. I'm trying to explain how it looked. It looked very child. It just looked so childish, but it was. I don't even know how to explain it. It just it didn't look like no hospital I ever seen before ever in my life. Like even the ceilings just look. It was like it was made to capture a children's eye. Like the clocks, the way the ceilings were. It just looked like somebody built it with Legos. That's how it looked, and put all this extra childish stuff in there to attract people's eyes. It didn't look like a hospital. It looked like somewhere where you take your children to go to have fun, but it was a hospital, and it was beautifully built. Even on the outside of the hospital, the grass was made of Legos. It just was odd. I'm just like, it was made of Legos. And so I thought, like, how could this stuff not be destroyed by the sun or the rain? This is what I'm thinking. Like, how is this the way it is? Like, why is this the way it is? But I woke up the next day, and I was healed. I was healed. I woke up and I was glowing. I was radiant. Prior to that, I haven't really been eating. I wasn't really eating or sleeping. I just was like sick. And so I had like big dark circles underneath my eyes. My face was sunken in because everything I ate, it just tasted so funny. So I wasn't really eating either. So no sleep, no food for about, not too much sleep, not too much food, I'll say that. For about 2 weeks, I looked like a zombie. But when I woke up, I looked radiant. I even went downtown. I woke up, got dressed, went downtown, and took care of some business on an empty stomach. I didn't even eat. I had so much energy. I was filled with so much joy and happiness. It was just, when I walked down the street, everybody was just looking at me, smiling at me. I just was feeling wonderful. But I did still hear the Holy Spirit tell me to go to the hospital. So I went to the hospital to get checked out, and I had a sinus infection. So they gave me antibiotics for that, and I was perfectly fine after that. But
how dare you?
That was amazing. That was amazing. But I just felt like I needed to share that with somebody, because God is a healer and He will heal you. Just have faith. That's all. Just take a moment to believe. And if you don't believe, what are you losing if you believe for one moment? What are you losing? God healed me. If He can help me, He can heal anybody. He can heal anybody. He can do it. But I just wanted to share that to somebody, and hopefully that touches somebody. God bless you all.